Yo, check out my website, www.theclownthompson.net. That's clown spelled with K as you see here. As you see, here are my rants here. I'll be more and more regular in posting rants in the future. You see what I have going on here. Also, you can also get your merch here at www.cafepress.com. Search for the Clown Sports. You see here I have sweatshirts, hoodies, baby gear, mugs, t-shirts. So just come on over and grab yourself some merch.
Welcome to tonight's second edition of the week of the Clown Out Podcast. I'm Scott Burks. I'm playing hurt tonight because I have a little cold, so bear with me. But anyway, please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. We talked a bit about the HBCU sports last night, the celebration with my other guy, Dwayne Nash. You check it out there as well. But at any rate, even if you do not agree with what either myself or my guests say tonight, because once you comment, share, and like or subscribe, in the end, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you. All right. So this is like a second part two, if you will, of our Florida State getting screwed by the college football playoff discussion. And we centered mostly on the college football playoff side, but we teased a little bit about the ACC's inability to, say something. So outside of Florida State, outside the head coach, outside the athletic director, the players. So we're going to focus most of tonight on Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC's inability to do at least something. So you guys know him. He's one of my good friends. He is a co-creator of the ACC sports blog, all sports discussion. Jeff Fan is back in the house. Going to just grieve a little bit about Florida State some more. So how you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good here, doing good. Watching Memphis pretty much boat race Virginia, which
Mm,
not unexpected. I think Memphis is really good,
yeah.
um, playing on their home court. But looking at tonight, the I'm not too surprised by this. The Citadel beat Notre Dame by 20
20 points, dude.
on their home court.
That's sad. That's sad, bro.
Yeah, the Irish are they're Louisville bad. They're Louisville bad. Those are two teams have no chance at any kind of postseason this year. They're terrible, and I'm about to put Florida State in there too.
That's sad. I think, and right quick before we move on, I think speaking of Florida State, someone said on Twitter or X that um, this may be the last year or two for Leonard. I forget his last name.
Leonard Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah,
Yep.
they're not going to. Apparently, Florida State's not going to force somebody to go try or fire him. They're going to try if it doesn't get better before still gets worse. They may try to Jim Boeheim him, just trying to say, we don't want to fire you, but we're going to give you a golden parachute if you just resign at this. But anyway, hope things get better for them. But speaking of things not getting better, talking about Jim Phillips, right? So in light of, we hadn't talked for a couple of weeks, but in light of what happened to Florida State, we all know about it, right? We all know that they got screwed, all the things.
Yep.
I still have yet to hear from Jim. You pretty much heard, obviously, the head coach, obviously the AD, obviously some players, obviously people in the media, and shout out to the ACC Network, ACC Now show, where you said on Twitter or X that this is when the ACC Network became for the ACC instead of just about the ACC.
Yep.
So you saw you pretty much saw Eric McLean on ACC Now, um, former Florida State quarterback EJ Manuel. It's another player on that former player on there. I forget his name. I think he played at Virginia Tech. Um, you know,
Oh,
and,
Eddie
and
Royal.
Eddie Royal, yeah,
Yep.
and the lovely host there. I forget the young lady's name. She does a great job. But they were just saying, man, it was raw. It was very, very raw.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the fact that they didn't give a damn that the paychecks were signed by ESPN. They told the truth, right? And also, my man Mark Packer. lay the
Yep.
wood.
Mark Packer, his co-host Taylor Tannenbaum,
Yeah,
Adri Adelson, David Hell, who
David Hell
have a
too. Yeah.
show in there. I mean, I totally agree with you, Scott. I mean, they all came through, and that was like really the first time I felt like, and I watch the ACC network. I like
Mhm.
the
I
shows
do
on
too.
it. I think a lot of them have improved. I'm definitely not one of those people that is criticizing it at every turn. I mean, they have done some things I don't agree with, but
Sure.
I do think they have done some good things, but it still kind of felt like it was a network that was about the ACC. And like you said, it really felt like a couple weeks ago it was for the ACC. I mean, all those folks stood up. I mean, they were outraged. They made their opinions known. They did it
Yeah.
in a great fashion and did it over, 48, 72 hours. And I mean, it is exactly what needed to be said. They had a lot of, you know, publicity for it on social media. They even got EJ Manuel, on one of the talk shows on ESPN. I don't know if he was on. It was First Take or
Hmm.
which one, but they gave him an opportunity to share his opinion there, and that's not something we had seen at all. I mean, they'll let Feinbaum go on there like 3 times a week,
I
but
know.
we never let a ACC person onto the uh, national shows, but they did then, and I think a lot of that came from the stuff they were saying on ACC network. So I mean, for that, I give hats off to a lot of their personalities on that.
Yeah, we say both say that to say that none of the people involved were named Jim or Phillips.
Yeah,
And so I'm like
exactly.
wondering, I'm asking, maybe rhetorical question I'm asking you. It's like you kind of wonder if he too is he out of one, two things. Either he's long for the if he's long for the job or not, as commissioner. Or two, does he even want to be commissioner? Because he hasn't said anything outside that one statement he put out through a PR department. And you hadn't heard from him. I don't know if he's doing stuff behind the scenes. I don't know if he's pulling a ninja swath. Shout out to John Swafford, former commissioner, and working behind the scenes. But dude's not doing anything. He's not making any rumblings. He's not saying jack. So it's like, what is he do? Why is he MIA, dude? I mean, it's just so frustrating. The fans of the ACC to see him just doing little to nothing. And Joe Obius, one more thing, Joe Obius and Joe Giglio pretty much said the same thing on their podcast, the OG show, which is a great podcast on YouTube. Please check it out. But they've been wondering the past few weeks, where has Jim Phillips been? So again, I don't know if he even wants the job anymore. I don't know if he's going to be around much longer. I was watching another ACC show saying he may be around for only 2-3 years tops. It wouldn't be surprised. But I'm just frustrated that Jim Phillips has done next to nothing in the aftermath of what happened to Florida State. It's not making that conference look good either.
No, I mean, I think that is one thing that every ACC fan can agree on. Um, whether you're a FSU fan who's frustrated with the conference, or
Mm-hmm.
a Wake Forest fan who probably wants to see it, thrive. I think everyone has to be frustrated by Jim Phillips. Here he is, given this opportunity to defend his conference nationally, has his own network that I'm 1000% positive would have let him say anything he wanted, because we
Yeah.
saw what they did with the rest of the personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Could have went on there, gave a lengthy interview about what happened to Florida State, put statements out there, whatever. And just like you said, Scott, I mean, nothing from the guy. I mean, I do think it was probably more about having an SEC team, especially named Alabama,
Yeah.
than a shot at the ACC. But if you think it was a shot at the ACC, I could certainly understand that. And it's his job to go out there and speak publicly on it, and to share the outrage. Yeah, the statement was nice, but that should have just been the beginning,
The prelude
not
at the best, yes.
the prelude. I mean, he should have went on like a freaking speaking tour for like 3 straight days,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't remember who was talking from ESPN, and I thought this was so interesting. I was on the Dusty and Danny Cannell show, Dusty
Mhm.
Jaborchak and Danny Cannell. Actually, I listen
Yep.
to that show on the way to work every morning. I like it.
Yeah, I do too.
But last week they have the SEC schedule release, and it was on ESPN, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, here goes ESPN doing stuff for the SEC again." And okay, we know they do, and that's going to bring me something I'm going to talk about later on with this snub. But
Sure, of course.
they the ESPN personality that was on there, I think it was maybe Matt LeBerry. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry to get the name if I got the wrong person. But they asked him straight out, like, "Hey, SEC on just releasing their schedule and it's on ESPN channels," and he said, "Don't knock ESPN for that. That was Greg Sankey asking for that and working with ESPN." He said Jim Phillips had that opportunity if he wanted to do it just the same. And so here another ESPN person calling out and saying, "Hey, Sankey's doing it." And I really believe that some of this is part of Jim Phillips just not being aggressive enough to get himself on a platform. And here he was with this, what happened to Florida State and indirectly the ACC could have been
Right.
pounding his fist. I mean, if you think the ACC is a sinking ship, you know, why don't you go out swinging at least?
Right, right, right.
And I think, I think it was just really stunning in the worst kind of way that he's been MIA during this whole thing. It's that bothers me almost as much as the snub does.
Right. I hear you. I hear you, brother. Before we continue, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to our sponsor, and then we'll really delve into it because you teased it that you have more to add on the matter. But right quick, I'm gonna give a shout out to BetUS.com. So listen up, sports bettors. Your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for our 30th year of NFL action. So with the industry's biggest signing bonus up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB. So if you're looking for live in-game betting, incredible odds with daily odds boosters, props, and parlays, got them. How about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? We got that too. So log into betus.com or call 800-792-387. That's 800-79-BET-US. You use promo code TKT for the Clown Times as well. BetUS.com, where the game begins. Now let's go back to what you excuse me just said about him being MIA. And I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Because I think that Jim Phillips is one of those one of those factory producers, if you will, administrators who's collegial, who doesn't think outside the box too much. Like I look at what the Big 12 has and Brett Yormark, outsider. Look what he's been doing. Now, mind you, his team, even his schools, even with the new media deal that they signed, they're going to still average a bit less per school than the ACC. But look how they've recovered since losing Oklahoma and Texas, right? Bringing in the 4 American schools. Then this is the coup de grace, making a push and getting Colorado and the rest of the corner schools, Arizona State, Utah, made a major push for Oregon and Washington before they were like, look, we're going to Big Ten no matter what, no matter on a discount or not. So there's probably not much to do there. But the fact that Yormark was so aggressive, and he's been on the talk about speaking tour. He's got something having something going on in Mexico with football and basketball with the Big 12. He's been like out and about just talking. I mean, this guy came from Rock Nation, right? So, he knows marketing. He knows social media. And, even though, again, the schools with this new media deal, they still average a bit less, just not by a lot, but a bit less per school than the ACC. You wouldn't know it because he's been out and about. And now I know Texas is going to the SEC next year, but at least you can say he has a Big 12 squad in the college football playoff. They're still going to get that money. So I just wish, even if Phillips was not long for the job anymore, I just hope that the conference gets someone from the outside. Get someone who's going to stir shit up. Get someone who's going to be a bullhorn like Greg Sankey. Get someone who's going to be a troll, a classic one, a classic version of Paul Feinbaum. Get someone that can talk up the conference because people tend to forget the ACC is a damn good conference. They're by far away the best soccer conference in the land, men and women. And if I'm not mistaken, both men and the women side won the College Cup, right? And
I think they're leading right now with all the fall national championships. ACC is number one.
Yeah, exactly. And in the case of in the men's side, Clemson beat another ACC school, Notre Dame. So the fact of the matter, I mean, we could go on about lacrosse, we go on about men's and women's, we go on about field hockey, track. It's a damn good conference. Even football this past year, they had a damn good year. So I mean, it just frustrates me that we have a man in charge who does next to little to hype up his own cups, do his job. Battle cages behind the scenes, all that stuff. But anyway, I know you have a point you're going to lead to something else, but I just want to get that off my chest before you get to the conversation.
I mean, I just agree with you 100%. I mean, you have a network, a whole entire network devoted to the conference. I mean, give them like a 30 minutes interview and just explode on what happened.
Right.
But no, I really don't know what. I mean, he gets paid something like $2 or $3 million a year. I mean,
right.
Do something, speak on something. The behind the scenes stuff it's just not. It doesn't work anymore. Maybe you could have been a commissioner, 25 years ago like that, but it doesn't work in this modern day.
Right. Right. So I really don't know. I'll say this, man. I'll just say this. I know they moved the offices from Greensboro to Charlotte. That was a big deal for whatever reason, but I just hope that people in the conference, and I've noticed that the AD from Carolina, Bubba Cunningham, has been speaking out more as well. And so I just hope going forward that schools taking the cue from Florida State, taking the cue from Carolina, and just speak out. It's okay to hype up your own league. It's okay to hype up your own school. No matter how you feel about the league, you got to hype it up. It's going to benefit.
You're in it right now.
You're in it. You're going to be in it for the next probably 10, 15 years, even if you're making a move. So you might as well just make it profitable for you. So I just don't know. Now, conversations coming up, a source is saying that Florida State is reconsidering the ACC's future, even though they're not going to move anytime soon. They know that. The Twitter lawyers don't know that, but still they know that. But all because of this snub, all because of all this stuff. And I think you're going to have more to add on that to that part as far as how all this comes into play. I mean, but I'll just say this, man. It's just with snub, and I just wrap this up right quick before we get into the last bit of the podcast. It's just follow the money. Follow the money. I mean, they know that they're going to get huge ratings. They believe with Michigan, Alabama, than Michigan, Florida State without Jordan Travis. I would argue, mind you, that Florida State and Michigan would make a better matchup because it's strength against strength. Florida State's front seven against Michigan's running game, the offensive line. And their quarterback is all that to write home about either. No disrespect to J.J. McCarthy, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
So, they only beat like offensively challenged Iowa squad. They barely broke 20 points. But anyway, I just it sounds like to me, that's why I said last time we spoke with you and Matthew that I think if Jordan Travis had still been around and they were still kicking ass at games, I still think they would have at least worked on a way to get Alabama over that versus Florida State. I mean, I'm just that cynical.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think there was any way Florida State was getting in that game, in that semifinal matchup. If Alabama won that game, wouldn't have mattered if Jordan Travis. It wouldn't have mattered if they had beat Florida and Louisville by 80 combined points, and Jordan
Mhm.
Travis was a quarterback, they were going to find a way to keep Florida State out of that playoff
Yeah,
and shoehorn Alabama in.
yeah, yeah. It's too bad. Speaking of Florida State, we'll get into the bowl conversation real quick.
Um, but
We,
let me add
okay,
one
go ahead.
thing.
Okay, sorry.
The one thing I did want to say was like what I heard
Mhm,
was on Twitter this week,
mhm.
and just to speak of like the lack of credibility and integrity of the whole
Right.
process.
Yeah.
When Kirk Herbstreit, I mean, he was on some podcast or something, and he was televised, and he
Yeah.
said
I saw that too.
point blank, we met with the committee and said you should take the four best teams. Now I don't know what other conversations they might have had in the background, but there is no way ESPN should have any word at all with the playoff committee prior to the announcement. They
Right.
should have no influence in any way. So when he said that they had been speaking to him, just right there took the entire credibility of the selection out. It was what everyone thought, but then he basically says it. He doesn't say that we told him who to take. But just the fact that they had been meeting and they had discussions with them, I mean, I don't care what they talked about. If they were in the same room together and they had a discussion on the playoff, right there, no credibility to the selection process whatsoever.
Yeah. And that's what happens to get a group of human beings in there. Biases come out. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's college football. It has to be the most subjective sport out there. It has to be at least with figure skating and boxing, they have scores.
Yeah, they got rules to it.
They do. At least they got that in gymnastics. But this is I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. It's a damn beauty contest. It's a beauty contest that all the conference commissioners signed up for with four teams. They knew it was an unfair system to begin with because someone was going to get screwed. It just so happened it happened this past year for the first time, really. So they said they could wash their hands of it because they're going to 12, but still, I mean, it is what it is. It just doesn't give much hope for ACC past maybe Florida State or Clemson wants to get that together, or even the Big 12. To be honest with you,
No, I mean that's another thing they hadn't been paying attention. I mean, if you look at the rankings, you take out Texas, and I don't
uh-huh.
think that there wasn't a Big 12 team in the top 12. I think Arizona coming in was what 14 or something.
14. They were 14. Yeah.
I mean, they're easily going to get they get their one team in and not have another one in. So
Yeah.
the Big 12 is not an answer. It's not a home.
Right.
They're in the same boat. They might exist in name,
Mhm.
um, but it's not better. I don't know
Oh,
where that narrative seems to come from because if I'm in a ACC school and something happens to the conference and I don't end up in the Big Ten or the SEC, I don't look at that as a home. I mean,
no,
you might as
no.
well try to gobble together the ACC and keep some fashion of it together because the coaches in the Big 12 and then sorry, yeah, the Big 12. I mean, the
Mhm.
Utah coach has already alluded. If he got an opportunity, they would leave.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a home. I don't know where that narrative gets started. When they get the opportunity, and if the Big Ten and SEC find value in one of their schools, they're gone.
They are. They are. And that's the beauty of them signing short deals. You know what I mean? So that's why I hate to go back to Jim Phillips, but that's why Jim Phillips, I don't know if he did it or not behind the scenes, but he to me did not court the likes of Utah or the Arizona. He didn't do that because at least the better from a competitive standpoint than what they got out of the scraps of the Pac-12, soon to be Pac-2, and Cal and Stanford. I know Cal was decent in football this year, but still, I mean, to me, having Utah, the Arizona schools, maybe they got lucky and I don't think they had to show Colorado because Colorado jumped way ahead. But nevertheless, if they would have gotten those three schools, I think they could still would have ended up in it with SMU, I think. because FSU is flush with cash. They're on the ACC for 7 years for free.
Yeah.
So they got the cash. I don't think it would have been a big deal to add that to you, even with those 3 schools. But that just goes to show you that if Utah recognizes, I'm sure the Arizona schools recognize that too, that it's not really home. They're just there out of convenience.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. But at any rate, going back to Florida State, man, before I really get upset. You're Florida State. You're Mike Norvell, the head coach. You're sitting there, you got screwed. Players already opting out of the Orange Bowl, which is, I guess, the byproduct of the college football playoff. The rest of the bowls just become meaningless, right? So it's just sad to see, but it is what it is. But quickly, Georgia, there's another school, Georgia, who believes in their mind that they got screwed. I mean, how do you go from number 1 to number 6?
With a 3-point loss.
With
Yeah.
a 3-point loss, breaking a 29-game losing streak, you're a twice defending champ. How does that even work? And also, if you think Georgia's better than Florida State, why do you have Georgia ranked behind Florida State? So they're pretty much 2 pissed off squads headed to the Orange Bowl. Now, I don't know the finances mechanisms, you know what I mean? But there's been a conversation about Florida State possibly boycott. And there's possibly Georgia feeling the same, that because they have a lot of their players out. So, first of all, if you're out of one of those schools, would you just say screw this? But and if so, like, what would be the financial impact? Because again, I don't know what the financial impact is. I don't know if the check's already signed and cleared or not.
I mean, I think if the players want to play, if your team wants to play, I mean, you play. I mean, you leave it up to the players. And if they say they don't want to play, I mean, if I'm an official at Florida State or Georgia or whoever, I mean, I don't force them. And you definitely don't owe anything to ESPN at this point.
No.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that much money.
Right.
I think they split the Orange Bowl money is something like $28 million to each conference, and once you divide that up between 14 teams, you're only talking
2 million.
like a couple $1 million. I mean, that's not gonna. I don't know how the contract works out that you have to, but I mean, I would guess that if you want to cancel, you cancel. They did during COVID and didn't seem to, left it up to the schools to decide. So, I mean, if they did it, which I mean, I don't think they're going to do it, but if they did, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't think they owe anything to ESPN at this point, knowing how they did this playoff thing.
Yeah, I just think that it's a then or no win situation because what if they go to play, they get beat by Georgia because a lot of the top guys opted out. Even though Georgia will probably have a lot of their guys opted out too. But the point is, you go and play them. If you lose to Georgia, like expected, because hey, Georgia's favored by 2 touchdowns, then they were like, well, see, Florida State didn't belong in the college football playoff. And then if they were to beat Georgia,
they didn't want to be there.
Like, Georgia didn't want to be there. So either way, they lose. Either way, Florida State. So that's why I think, and again, we won't know until probably a few days before at the earliest. I wouldn't be shocked if either one of those teams boycotted and the Orange Bowl gets canceled. It wouldn't shock me one bit. Because I think Georgia doesn't really want to be there either. Because again, in their minds, they got screwed too.
Yeah, and I mean, if you really want to say 4 best teams and all this, and say that they picked the 4 best teams or however, I mean, they did get screwed because it's not about it's not about the 4 best teams based on Vegas odds.
Right.
I mean, you can't decide participants based on that. But I mean, we could talk about that the whole time. So if they did decide to boycott, I'd actually kind of applaud them because that kind of show it like, hey, this is this athletic competition. This just isn't about TV ratings. And so good luck finding your TV ratings for 3.5 hours for the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, the other programming. So it wouldn't shock me one bit. I'd be kind of flat for them. So we'll see what happens with that. But we're going to close the show with this. They got other bowl games, right? Again, bowl games have been really meaningless since the college football playoff. But you got Syracuse playing South Florida Thursday in the Boca Raton Bowl. You got Georgia Tech in UCF in the Gasparilla Bowl. You got Duke and Troy in the Birmingham Bowl. Virginia Tech, Tulane in the GoBowling.com Bowl. Military Bowl, I should say. Sorry. North Carolina and West Virginia in the Mayo Bowl, Duke's Mayo Bowl. Louisville versus USC in the Holiday Bowl. My alma mater, NC State versus Kansas State in the Pop Tarts Bowl. Soon to be conference foe, SMU going up against Boston College in the Fenway Bowl, which I think is hilarious. And last but not, and two more bowls. I'm sorry, Rutgers, Miami in the Pinstripe Bowl, Clemson, Kentucky in the Gator Bowl. Which of those bowl games would you watch or be curiously interested in, slightly interested in?
Yeah, I mean, in years past, I would have been interested in all of them because
Right.
I would have just been like, hey, there's football, it's on, and but between the snub and the opt outs and the transfers, like my enthusiasm for postseason football is just like
Yeah.
it's just tanked. To be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, like this past weekend, I didn't watch a second of college football. I watched all those college basketball games that were so good. I watched a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like personally, because I'm like a fan of Georgia Tech, I'm really wanting to see how they do in the Gasparilla Bowl. That is a game I'll watch, and
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a fan of Clemson, um, I'm really interested in
Yeah.
that game as well. See if Dabo Sweeney, can they can win 5 games in a row. I mean, it's a big difference between finishing the year 9-4 on a 5-game winning streak than
Yeah.
going 8-5 and everybody wondering, you know, have you really fallen too far off the map to get back to elite status? So
Right.
very interested in Clemson, Georgia Tech, seeing if they can win their first bowl game since 2016. Haynes King, building momentum for next year. Could be the best returning quarterback in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other game I am interested in is I think NC State and NC State and Kansas State,
Yeah, that's what I was
your
thinking
alma
too.
mater, is one
Yeah.
of the better bowl matchups out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, NC State and Dave Doran having a chance at a 10-win season, I think is
Yeah.
a big deal uh, in in Raleigh, and I think that's going to really can show, hey, NC State is a program on a really solid foundation, and you know Clemson and Florida State might be the flagships, but we got NC State here right underneath them, and now with
Yeah.
a 12-team playoff, I mean, you win 10 games in a regular season,
Yeah.
you're
You have a
not far
chance.
off. You're not
Yeah.
far off from being a top 12 team. I mean, we thought maybe Pittsburgh would be that kind of the under the radar team that would, have a sustained success, and they fell
Mm.
off this year. So, I mean,
Yeah.
NC State looks like that team that can be that consistent 9, 10, possibly 11, you know, game winner,
Mm-hmm.
going forward, and can really think, hey, we can reach the playoffs if we have a good year. We've beaten Clemson um, in recent years, so I'm very interested to
Yeah.
see NC State too. I mean, I'm sure I'll check in on some of the other games, but like I said, my enthusiasm is just really falling off for postseason college football.
Me too. I really, to be honest with you, aside from NC State, Kansas State, because I think NC State, they're going to really play to win. Because again, to your point, 10 wins. They have a shot at 10 wins. And Clemson and Kentucky are the only bowls that I would really consider watching. I mean, really outside of the NC State Bowl is Clemson because they're in the Gator Bowl. And they have a
Yep.
chance to win 9 games was a down year. And speaking of down years, NC State has a chance to win 10 games when many thought was they were building it.
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
and the job Dave Doran did in the second half of the year, handling the QB situation to Brennan Armstrong,
Mhm.
everyone thought like, oh, he could really take off and play like he did at Virginia, and he struggled. And MJ Morris comes in and then, leaves the program, eh, and you're thinking, oh, Brennan Armstrong is going to come back. How's NC State going to hold it together? And I mean, they just, worked through the quarterback situation. He got
Mhm.
better. Concepcion was that big offensive star at the ACC, and I hope I
Yeah.
pronounced his name right. But
Yeah, Concepcion, that's correct.
yeah, I
Got
mean
it.
he was used, and of course uh, Peyton Wilson All-American Butkus Award winner at linebacker. So I mean, there's a lot of good things going, looking good there for NC State, and I think that's a big game for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. So where can the people find you on social media? Your great work.
Yeah, you can find me at Talking ACC Sports. I might need to change that to Talking ACC Basketball right now, because I'm kind of checked out on the football. No,
Right.
I still have things to say on that. I mean, the games are
Mhm.
still going on, but
Right.
find me at Talking ACC Sports, blogging on allsportsdiscussion.com
Mhm.
on the ACC. So yeah, check that out. Podcasting on Sunday nights with Matthew at ASD_Hokey Smash is his account. So yeah, as always, Scott, enjoy being on your show, and
Yes.
I'm looking forward to more to basketball, and yeah, I'll still check on football.
You can't quit football.
I,
Yeah, and so listeners out there, y'all know him. Please check his work out. It's great stuff, especially if fans of ACC and college sports in general. And as for me, please see like, comment, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anyway, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. Have a good rest of the weekend. Please stay warm because it's cold as hell out there. Y'all take care. Enjoy the bowl week. Peace out. Take care.